Hello, my name is Colby Sharp, 5th grade teacher in Michigan. Welcome to my channel where we try to help kids fall in love with reading. And one of the ways that we do that is by reading aloud books to them. Read aloud is so special and so wonderful, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing. So if you like learning about read alouds or books to read aloud or people rambling on about read aloud, subscribe to this channel. And you'll be notified anytime I talk more about read alouds. Usually when I'm talking about read alouds, I will talk about the impact that it has on my readers, or I'll share the books that I've read aloud to kids. But today we're doing something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 10 books that I want to read aloud, but I've never read aloud. Like, I don't know about you, but I usually will read like 1, maybe 2 books aloud to my students during the course of the year that I've already read in the past other years. Then everything else is new. I'm always adding and adding, trading things out. I don't want to get bored. I want to introduce some new stories, new books are coming out, new authors, all kinds of different pieces fit together as to why. But for some reason, these 10 books I've never read aloud to kids. I want to know, too, what books you're dying to read aloud to kids that you've never read aloud. Now, all of these books I have read, but none of them I have read aloud to kids. So we're going to talk about them, tell a little bit about why I like the book, maybe I'll talk a little bit about why I haven't read it aloud. Yeah, all right, here we go. First one, starting with this one because The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo, because Kate DiCamillo's Because of Winn-Dixie is one of my 3 all-time favorite read aloud books. I love it so much. There's some scenes in there that I love reading aloud. And I just will cry buckets of tears, and it's so powerful, and the room is just stunned silent. And Tale of Despero is beautiful to read aloud. I read Flora and Ulysses aloud to my students. I love reading Kate's books. And so many teachers around the world have read The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane aloud. And so many of my students, when they come to me, I ask them what their favorite read alouds are. And so many say this book, but I've never read it aloud. I don't think I have. Maybe I don't think that I have read this aloud. If you had me in class, let me know in the comments if I read it aloud. But I'm pretty sure I haven't read it aloud. And one of the reasons is because almost all the time I get the students that I have, most of them have had this book read aloud to them, which means I can't read it aloud, which makes me really, really sad. But I love this book and I love this author. And maybe there'll be a time when I can read it aloud to kids at some point, because it is just such a magical tale, and I think it would make a fascinating read aloud. All right, next up, these 4 books kind of go together. Yeah, we'll talk about these 4 that kind of go together. Sharon Draper, Out of My Mind, another one that's been read aloud by tens of thousands of teachers, been read aloud to hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million kids. It's just such an amazing and powerful and important story. And did you know, you probably knew this, I'm gonna move over so I can, if I remember, put a picture up here. Out of My Heart is coming out November 9th, 2021. So we get to go back to this world. Sharon Draper is taking us back to this world. I'm so excited. Out of My Heart, November 9th, 2021. So I really want to read this book, maybe even one of our early read alouds during the 2021-2022 school year, so that right after we finish it, that book drops and there's all kinds of buzz and excitement. And then they'll also want to read her book Blended, which is such a beautiful story. And I actually have a kid that's just sitting right over there, recording this at the very end of the school year, that sits right over there, that is loving Blended and just all in. So Out of My Mind, I so need to read this aloud. I really think it's going to be one of my first 2 read alouds next year. Next up, Clean Getaway, Nick Stone's middle grade debut. And one of the things that I love about this book is that you are figuring out things with the character, things that the character did not know. And I think that's so interesting. So often things happen to a character and that's the story, but I love when the characters are uncovering their family history or something that's happened around them. And this book is one of them, and the grandma is one of the most interesting, fascinating, unforgettable characters that I have ever experienced in a story. She is a hoot. And Nick Stone's next middle grade book is coming out at the end of August 2021. It's called Fast Pitch. And Fast Pitch is inspired by The Sandlot, which is one of Nick's favorite books or movies. And it's one of everyone. Isn't it You Killing Me, Smalls? It's so good. And there's that wonderful, I'm not going to bore you with Sandlot, but heroes live forever, but legends never die. Sandlot is so good. And she's written a book, Fast Pitch. There's a little softball flavor in that. Oh my gosh. I have a girl who loves softball in my class, so I'm gonna have to get it to her in middle school. Oh, it's so exciting. So yeah, I'd really like to read Clean Getaway aloud. I think it would make a fun read aloud, and it's rooted in history, and I think a lot of the history of this book the kids don't know. And I think it would be really, really powerful. Clean Getaway. Next up. Oh, that's not part of my 4. That's a good one. The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. 4th grade teacher reads aloud. I love this book. This would have been the book. I might have loved this book as much or more than Hatchet when I was in 4th grade. My teacher in 4th grade read aloud Hatchet, Wild Robot right up there. But the nice thing about Wild Robot, I guess as well with Hatchet nowadays, is there are other books in the series, and that's what I wanted to say now. Coming out in the summer of 2023, Wild Robot Protects. I don't have a cover to put up there because it's not, we don't have it yet, but 2023, we're going to have a 3rd book in the Wild Robot series, The Wild Robot Protects. We get a chance to meet Roz again. So if I don't read The Wild Robot next school year, 2021-2022, definitely read it 2022-2023 so that those students can be ready for The Wild Robot Protects. We'll see. I'm not sure if the 4th grade teacher will read it aloud every year or not. So, and Pax, next one, Pax by Sarah Pennypacker. Boom, National Book Award. Long list, amazing story, adventure, 2 storylines, it starts together, go apart. It's just so, I loved it. Like, I've had some people who didn't love this one as much as me, but man, I love this book, and I've only read it 1 time, so I would love to read it again. It's been so long. And Pax's Journey Home is coming out later this year, and I'm so excited for Pax's Journey Home. I cannot wait to go back into this world. And you know, if you know how Pax ends, you hear the title Pax's Journey Home, you're gonna have to read it. Pax, I never read this aloud. Have you read this aloud? Well, don't forget to let me know in the comments which books you would love to read aloud that you've never given a try to. And if you read any of these aloud, let me know if I'm on the right track, if they make good read alouds or not. Next up, Mr. Lemonshellow's Library, Chris Grabenstein. I love this whole series, and that's one of the things that I love to do as a read aloud is read the first one and then get kids going in the series. And I think that I would be able to easily get kids to want to continue in this series if I read the first one aloud. I remember right when this book came out, it felt like everyone was reading this book aloud. And I think there's 4 books in the series, 3 or 4 books in the series. So now we have all those books in the series, and there's so many other Chris's books, and he's just all over the place and such great stories. So I'm thinking that this would be a really fun one to read aloud, and like, we need to read fun books aloud. So Escape from Mr. Lemonshellow's Library. A lot of people who read this aloud were like all about it and all in, and it's so fun. It's just like such an adventure, and there's just the villain kids, and it's just really fun. It's like Mr. Wonka, but you know, it's written now, and Chris is a really good person, so let's go. All right, 4 more. Esperanza Rising, Pam Munoz Ryan. I've never read this book aloud, and another one that I only read 1 time in my life, and it has been, over a decade ago. And like, this is another one that like so many kids, hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million plus kids have had this book read aloud to them, and there's a reason. And I want to feel what that feel. I want to feel it in my class with my students. So an oldie, which is weird to say, but one that I would like to experience reading it aloud. I'm going to have to teach forever. I'm going to have to teach till I'm like 90 to read all these books aloud. And then the books are going to just keep coming out. I'm never going to be able to read them all aloud. Never. Like, when I get excited like this, I talk really fast. I feel like I'm talking really fast, so I'll try to slow down a little bit. Next up, The 14th Goldfish, another one that has a sequel, The Third Mushroom. And Jennifer Holm is one of my favorite authors, and I would love to get kids reading her books, Turtle in Paradise, Our Only May Amelia, Penny from Heaven, The Lion of Mars, like so many of her books. I think this one, I just think I would really love to read aloud. I read Turtle in Paradise aloud, it went really well. I would love to read this one aloud. Just the science part of it, the girl is so amazing in this, just the whole premise of the 14th Goldfish and what it means. I think it would be, and the beginning, oh my gosh, the beginning of this book. I love a good beginning. Oh, it's so good. The beginning is so good. I love this book. Next up, Song for a Whale, Lynn Kelly. I am really good at book talking this book. Like, not to like pat myself on the back, but I am pretty darn good at book talking this book. Like, I can get a kid to read this book. Like, it's such an easy book to book talk. It's such a wild adventure, and I can always get a few kids each year to read it aloud, and I just think it would be so fun to read it together with them and experience it with them, because it's a pretty wild ride. Like, the girl does something, and her grandma do something pretty wild. And I love like when you have those moments in a book, especially not necessarily at the end, but like in the middle or like between like the first fourth and the second fourth. I don't know how you say that, but that part of the book, like when something like super wild happens and like kids aren't expecting it. Song for a Whale. And I've only read another one. I feel like part of me, this next book too, is like wanting to read aloud these books because I've only read them aloud once. That's kind of, if that's selfish or if it's just so good that I want to experience it again, meaning that I want my kids to experience it for the first time because I know how much they will love it. The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise. I love like where you're like going places, and like this trip in this book that they're going on is such amazing journey. And I loved this book the first time I read it, the only time I read it. And my daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, just read it, and like hearing her, she's 11 now. My 11-year-old daughter just read it, and just like her giving me updates throughout the whole book made me want to revisit these characters, and just to see how much they meant to her made me want to have that all of my students experience that and experience a great book like this. So these are the 10 books that I would love to read aloud, but I haven't. Let me know again in the comments, which books do you want to read aloud that you've never read aloud. My name is Colby Sharp. I hope you have an awesome-tastic day. Thank you for tuning in.